What's going on, everybody?
What's up, everyone? Welcome to our November 18th Daily Gaming News Show. I'm Kaisa.
I am Marrone, and welcome, everyone, early gang, to the Daily Gaming News channel here on Twitch.
How are y'all doing?
How's everybody doing? Yes, the hype train is a-happening. It is here. Guys, how you doing today?
I'm good. Day pretty much just started, even though it
Nice.
should have started way earlier because it's like 4 p.m. now.
I was like, my day started like 6 hours ago. I was like, but wait, aren't you ahead in time?
Yeah, I'm way ahead.
What's happening here? That's right. No, it's been going good. Just keeping busy, taking a look at things, getting things in order. Looking ahead as we gearing up to day one, but also just taking a look at some of this news. We got some really interesting stories to dive into today.
We do, starting off with how the Resident Evil 8 launch window has leaked after a Capcom ransomware attack.
It also looks like Apple is going to be having their App Store fees for the vast majority of developers.
We're going to get into Cyberpunk 2077's new Night City Wire special with Xbox One X and Xbox Series X footage. I love how they put this together, even though the game should be out by now, I'm pretty sure.
It should. Yes, it should. We're also going to dive into the nominees for the 2020 Game Awards.
We're going to get into a review of Godfall, which is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, it pretty much sums up all and most reviews of Godfall. And then the last story that, if we have enough time, that we will definitely be jumping into is Twitch is testing multiplayer ads that creators can use to make money.
And also probably for tomorrow, how Skull and Bones studio boss is stepping down but staying at Ubisoft.
And then another story, if we can jump into it, is playing video games may make you happier, a study has found.
And I just found an article that I definitely want to slot in for tomorrow about how people are bringing Jesus to video games because that's a new way for them to spread the gospel.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of weird. Not really looking forward to it.
Interesting. And as always, what's in the mug?
What's in the mug?
Throw up your guesses in the chat. I know we'll probably wait once Kai gets here. No, Kai is here. I just saw, oh, look, the text color.
The new color.
Hey, nice. The new color. I'm liking it.
Switching it up, throwing everybody off. Throw up your guesses in the chat. You're going to get a digital high five from us if you do guess it. But our first story is how the Resident Evil 8, also known as Resident Evil Village, launch window has leaked after a Capcom ransomware attack.
So earlier, in a press release, Capcom had stated that it had been the victim of a customized ransomware attack and that personal information relating to the company had been leaked online. Sales reports, financial information, and 9 items of personal information from both current and former employees that have been published online. But more distressingly, Capcom is concerned that the personal details of up to 350,000 customers, business partners, and employees have also been published online.
This could include personal contact details such as phone numbers and addresses, but the company has stated that no credit card information has been accessed.
Additionally, details about Capcom's upcoming slate of games have been pushed online as a result of the attack. Chiefly, documents relating to Resident Evil 8 have surfaced through the attack, naming a release date of a late April 2021 window. And without official word, Capcom, of course, declined to comment when approached. It is worth taking that with a pinch of salt, but there is documents related to this particular information leak.
A slew of additional details about upcoming Capcom projects have also been leaked. A VR version of Resident Evil 4 for Oculus Rift, a new Ace Attorney collection for PS4 and Nintendo Switch, and PC versions of Monster Hunter Rise and Monster Hunter Stories 2 were all referenced by files within the ransomware attack.
And finally, there's details referencing unannounced projects from Capcom. One is called Project Shield, which is supposedly a new multiplayer shooter, and that is named within those documents, as well as Project Guillotine, which is a new IP exclusive to the Nintendo Switch.
It's worth mentioning that a report from the BBC News indicates that Capcom has refused to pay the amount demanded by the attackers. We could therefore see additional details surrounding the company leaked over the coming days and weeks.
Okay, so I get the whole don't feed the aspect of, hackers and the ransom and money and everything, but I don't know I wonder how customers who potentially might have their information leaked feel about this, because how many places has this happened to now?
Oh my gosh, so many. And it's like right now, so ransomware, for those of you who don't know, it's basically you say, we're going to leak all this information unless you pay us. And they didn't get paid, so they released this information and didn't get any money. And this is also compromising customers. And these people aren't even getting any money. So the only thing we're getting out of this is, I guess, this leaked information, which is really cool and exciting. But like, I could have waited a few more months for this information. I'm not like itching for like, RE4 on VR. So pretty much it was like a lose-lose. And they did, were the work of leaking this information for no pay.
Yeah, and that's a part for me as I'm starting to think about it as well, is like, where is there a point where the customers have a say in the matter, right? Mm-hmm. I'm genuinely curious about that. Only for, isn't there a value to our protection of financial information and addresses and documents that might contain this kind of like privacy that we want to not have leaked out?
Right. It's like, I feel like there's always another leak. Like, I think the first big one that I remember was like, there was like a TJ Maxx leak. And then there's all these like credit card companies with information leaked. And all these game companies are often targeted to have information leaked. And it's like, even if I'm careful with my information, all these companies are being compromised. And like, I guess they don't really care if my phone number and address is out, but I do. That's important to me. And it's just so frustrating that it's like your information it could potentially be leaked. And it's just like, I hope people start, not pitchforking about this, but being more angry about this, because it seems like a lot of these companies have these leaks and then nothing happens and no one cares and everyone forgets about it.
Yeah, that's also the trend. It feels like we're like, what? How dare they? Okay, and then you just move on, and you're like, no, that's gotta stop. The only thing I take away from this is like the hype around, Resident Evil 8. We're like, yeah, so cool. We know it's probably coming out around April. This new game, this first-person shooter, the multiplayer shooter, Project Shield, seems like it's like, ooh, I want to know more of that. And then a VR version of Resident Evil 4 for Oculus Rift. I was like, that's also really enticing. Are you telling me we're going to get to play RE4 in VR? Wait, what?
But that would be crazy. I think that's what I'm most excited for from this. RE4 is so good. And even if VR maybe is going to be kind of clunky, I feel like I never replay games, but I would replay RE4, in VR. I'm looking forward to Resident Evil 8 coming out in April. That's cool. I feel like this game was recently announced. It's launching soon. Unlike some of these other games that are being delayed forever and ever, it's just like, hey, it's almost ready. Hopefully it does come out in April.
That's the thing. That's the thing too, because this game is really surprising, because it's the first time they've shifted more towards focusing on a pure first-person experience, aside from what was Resident Evil Biohazard, which that was there. We know we kind of got that little change in terms of what we've normally seen Resident Evil 4, but they were commenting on how this is getting more into that first person that they hadn't really explored yet. That I'm excited about to see what they add in those terms, in those features for first person shooter, experienced individuals. What is it about this game that's going to be, enticing with other like FPS horror games? You've played a few of those, yeah?
Yeah, a few of the Resident Evils, you mean?
A few of the like first person shooter horror type experience.
Oh yeah. And I would say like it's maybe more fun if it's in third person, but in first person it's just a lot more scary, because you have way shorter, you can't really see as much around you. You really have to turn around. You don't get any hints or any leg ups that you get while being in third person. It's so much more scary in first person, and it makes me think that they're also making these games kind of for VR, because it's just so easy to kind of just like port that over to a headset.
Yeah, I'm also noticing that trend too, that they're really pushing into these virtual reality experiences, which I like a lot, because when you have like a real big entity like Capcom taking a notable franchise such as Resident Evil and saying, hey, we're going to put this in this virtual reality mode into our games, and like our most iconic, I mean, Resident Evil 4 still stands tall amongst all the Resident Evil titles. I think it was that moment for all RE players that it breathed new life into the series, and we've just seen it kind of like just incline from there. And that's something that I'm like, as we're circling back around, it's like when you'd play Skyrim 2 times and they were like, Skyrim VR's coming out. People are like, oh, what? I get to play Skyrim in virtual reality?
I wonder if they're going to add any visual upgrades to Resident Evil in VR, because like while it's so fun, the game does look kind of old. So I'm wondering if they're going to like just like upgrade a few of the things so it doesn't feel like you're playing a super old game ported to VR. I think would be really cool because it's just such a gem. And if anyone in the chat doesn't like horror games, I would say that Resident Evil 4 is honestly like more fun than it is scary. Or there's a lot of like funny like story and like humor in it that it's just like an all-around good time.
Yeah, agreed. It's not as scary as like what if you played Biohazard and you were ready to be done in the first couple hours. But yeah, this is cool. Outside of the leaked personal information that is not cool. It's weird. It's like this information comes out. You're like, ooh, these games. But man, privacy. What? No. Yeah, violation of privacy. Yeah.
And it seems like Capcom is just like, we're not paying these ransomware attackers. The end. And it's like, okay, well, are you not paying them and also increasing your, security, internally? Or are you just not paying them and that's it?
Yeah, there's just going to be a lot of John Does and Jane Smiths signing up with any Capcom services from here on out, I bet.
Oh, I feel like that's going to be me with future games. I'm like, I'm going to go by, first name Kaisa, last name Streams.
Yeah, that sounds right. Oh my God. Well, another story is one that I found very interesting as we have been talking about this. Apple versus Epic and that 30% that seems just a wee bit ridiculous because it does now look like that Apple is going to be having those App Store fees for the vast majority of developers.
The very public spat between Apple and Epic Games over App Store fees has taken a particularly interesting turn today, as Apple has announced it's reducing its fees for some developers, but only for those earning less than $1 million in revenue per year.
The App Store Small Business Program comes into effect on the 1st of January, and it will see fees reduced from the standard 30% to 15% for developers that qualify. And the decision to have fees should significantly benefit indie and small developers, with Apple saying that the change will impact the vast majority of developers, and new developers will qualify immediately, while others will need to apply based on their proceeds in 2020.
It's a major change for the App Store, but it's worth noting this will likely make only a tiny dent in Apple's earnings. App analytics firm Sensor Tower estimates that while the change will cover 98% of companies that pay Apple a commission, these developers accounted for less than 5% of the App Store's revenues last year. And
Epic Games, of course, has been one of the most vocal opponents of App Store fees, initiating that dramatic legal battle that we have been reporting on frequently. And after it introduced an alternative payment system to Fortnite Mobile, which resulted in Apple and Google pulling the game from their stores, ironically, Epic will not qualify for this new reduction in fees, despite the fact it has positioned itself as fighting on behalf of all developers and has argued that the exorbitant, quote, exorbitant 30% fees on Apple and Google stores have stifled competition.
This move from Apple could make it harder for Epic to argue it's championing smaller developers with its lawsuit, as most seem to now be included in this reduction. Although given Epic has previously complained Apple has blocked payment methods such as MasterCard and PayPal, which charge 2.5 to 3.5% per rates, Epic may well argue this reduction doesn't go far enough. So pressure on Apple is coming from sources other than Epic, of course. The company's App Store business practices are currently the focus of an antitrust investigation by the European Commission, while President-elect Joe Biden's transition team has indicated it wants to see tougher antitrust enforcement in the U.S. The House Judiciary Committee published findings earlier this year recommending Congress define a new standard for antitrust violations. And with the Biden administration coming into office, that's now looking somewhat more likely, although Republicans and Democrats still remain split on how to take action. And beyond the App Store payment dispute with Epic, Apple has taken a fair bit of heat from other companies this year, including the likes of Microsoft after Apple blocked its attempt to bring xCloud to iOS, and perhaps a good bit of publicity was sorely needed. Meanwhile, Epic Games has brought its argument with Apple to the Australian courts, where it has initiated legal proceedings in Australia's federal court. According to the Sydney Morning Herald, the filing claims Apple is breaching Australian consumer law by preventing competition in its ecosystem for in-app payments and downloads. So Sweeney told the Herald earlier today that it's another set of laws under which Apple's practices are clearly in violation and another chance to get this issue really thoroughly examined.
He also went on to say that there's a really big and growing mobile software industry in Australia and a lot of great game developers. And they all suffer dearly by Apple and Google's 30% tax. I doubt there's a single developer in Australia who makes more profit from their own games than Apple and Google make from their games.
This is such a sneaky move by Apple because Epic is trying to kind of be the champion of the small companies and the small apps. And Apple's like, okay, well, we'll cut, what we take from them from 30% to 15%, but Epic, you still have to pay us a lot of money. And it seems like this isn't really an L for Apple because they still make buckets of money off just the top earners.
Yeah, and what is it, like $1 million? You have to, so wait, it's like, so when you make so much more, we're now going to want more, and we're not really doing anything different. We're not doing anything different than we did when we had you at the 15%, and we're not doing anything different when we have you at the 30%. I mean, we're literally not doing anything. We're hosting your game. That's what we're doing.
Right. And I don't know what's going to happen, with the lawsuit. I'm sure Epic's just going to say, like, this isn't enough, even for the top earners. And I feel like now they kind of might even look greedy because people might be like, well, you're already making enough money, Epic Games. Like, how much is enough? Like 30%, taking 30% of what you make isn't going to break your bank. Is this fair?
Yeah, this is that whole... we're going to do something and address this, and we're going to make people think that we're actually, righting the wrong. But when you really look at the detail, it doesn't feel that way. It's still just, it feels like Apple believes they deserve that cut for just, ultimately being the property in which the games are located. I just, that for me just doesn't make sense. That's like, I don't know, like old school arcades. If every time you were like Capcom and you were like, hey, we want one of our arcade machines as your arcade, the arcade owner's like, yeah, well, we're taking 30% off the top of everything your game earns.
Right, exactly. Like that's what it feels like. Like what? Like is this? I wonder how much the App Store, or how much money that brings in for Apple. It seems like a lot of money.
Yeah.
I agree. It's like the App Store. I don't think anyone's like, oh my gosh, the App Store is my favorite store. It's just like this is where you download apps. Like this is your only option to download apps. Like no one actually cares to download an app through the App Store. I think on Android you can technically download apps not through the Google Play Store, but it makes it really hard to use, and there's all these firewalls that come up that's like, this is a weird third-party app that might be a virus, like, are you sure you want to download this? So I think Fortnite kind of experimented with that, and then they were like, it just looks too sketchy, like we can't do this isn't really an option for people.
Yeah, can you, oh man, I feel like the number needs to be lower. I mean, I think it should be no more than 15% and should scale down based on the time in which the developer started it's on the App Store program. And if they say they increase and you're making more, we'll go no more than 15%, but it starts lower. I mean, still, you got to think about some of these indie developers that are going to put their games up on the App Store and they're still like, I'm losing 15% of my earnings, which are very small. And that ends up being a lot in comparison. And on the other end of the spectrum, when you look at like Epic, they're still like, we're paying so much to you guys. This just doesn't seem fair.
I agree that maybe 15% should be the upper cap here, because when I think about like agencies or like managers, like they take like 15% maximum, like I don't see how this is really any different, and it's taking more than that just does seem greedy, and it does seem like they're exploiting these app developers because they don't really have a right to anything more than I think what a standard like middleman cut should be. Like just because they're the only option, they're like, oh okay, we can jack up the prices. I also love how we were able to rope in President-elect Biden into our story of Fortnite and Epic Games today.
Well, there's a fun thing too, because I mean this whole talk on the antitrust and really focusing on this kind of stuff the way I think we've all been aware these tech companies are huge, and there needs to be a little bit of coming in and breaking it up. They're becoming larger, much larger than whales. And the one thing that I give Epic credit for as a company that is making billions of dollars is they're encouraging to have competition, because the only reason Epic exists in the manner in which they do is because there was competition that allowed Epic Games to breed and become eventually evolve into what it is now. And when you just don't have those areas, possible because you just have all these giants soaking everything up, that competition just goes away. And then you're not looking at a really fun place to be, consumer-wise, as well as, on the other side, providing a product.
Definitely not. And I think we're going to only just see some of these tech companies get bigger and bigger and bigger. Tech already takes up so much of our day-to-day and, what we do. I feel like this needs to be addressed now before it gets too out of hand. I'm already picturing in WALL-E how by and large runs absolutely everything. We need to prevent a by and large.
100%. Couldn't echo that enough. I always think of WALL-E when I think of what's going on right now with some of these really big tech companies. I'm like, man, they were on to something with that film.
They really were. And speaking of the future, we have a watch and react to Cyberpunk 2077's special of their Night City Wire.
So this is them showing off Xbox One X and Xbox Series X footage. It's the first time we're getting to see Cyberpunk running on a console, what that's going to look and feel like. And of course, as you said earlier, I'm pretty sure we're just seeing footage of a game that should be out right now and we should be playing it ourselves, but we can't, and we're going to watch these devs play a little bit more.
But we can't. So we're going to take a 10-minute, watch and react to this video. Hopefully it's going to be really hype. And hopefully this footage is actually from the Xbox Series X and One X versus a PC emulator that we've seen in some games.
Yeah, we'll be keeping our eye on that. So Kaisa, are you ready?
I am.
All right, in 3, 2, 1, let's do it.
You don't believe in no fate. Every day digging the grave. Stepping up to what
Music's always so good.
It is.
Hello and welcome to a special Night City Wire video
Love
that we've
her
had
Right.
a lot of requests for. With Cyberpunk 2077 now launching on December 10th, a few of you have been waiting to see the game running on console. So we've teamed up with our friends at Xbox to bring you Xbox One X and Xbox Series X gameplay. The gameplay footage starts with a quest line called Automatic Love, where V is attempting to hunt down a missing person via any means necessary. Now, in the interest of time, and to avoid spoilers, we have edited this footage, but it does
That's the
mean
Xbox
that
One
you'll
X.
still have
I mean, it
plenty
still
to
looks great.
discover
If
when
you told
play
me
it
that
for
was the
yourself
Series
on
X, I'd be like,
December
okay.
10th.
Yeah, right.
The gameplay will be switching between Xbox One X and Xbox Series X, and you can check in the corner to see which one you're looking at.
I mean,
Forget Evelyn.
okay, wow.
This is about Judy's virtues,
great.
isn't it? Good shit, if I say so myself.
Oh, that's right.
No,
It is
but
mature
you know,
content, so just everybody beware.
Choose like they were diamonds.
Damn straight.
Nope. Okay. Really interesting to notice the detail change, especially in the lighting and like the RTX. Like, look at the car now.
Yeah, that's true. The lighting behind the car,
Yeah.
even.
Oh man.
Yeah, how much glossier it is.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like little details that weren't in that
Right?
One X. This is a cool way to see like the difference of current gen and next gen. Well, that previous gen and current gen. We're no longer next gen.
Right? Previous gen now.
Wakako Okada, the Lady of Westbrook Estate. When you find a moment, come see me. We must settle our accounts for Sandra Dorset. You did quite well. You and that friend of yours.
God, I can't wait to be playing this.
Until then,
Don't even want to find you. Way I see it, only thing waiting for you here is
Hey!
getting off or getting
Yo,
off. Place your
Keanu.
bets.
What have I missed this time? Enlighten me.
Brain dance chick is hiding something.
Brain
No coincidence,
dance.
We already saw two tiger.
His
claws.
arm's so shiny.
Yeah.
Control the
Oh, we're back to the 1X.
I think Judy's lying. Why?
Okay.
little something called intuition, V. Ever heard of it?
Oh, so what you meant to say was you're full of shit. Got it.
Yeah, it just almost looks flatter, you know?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So hold on. You take a blow up doll, remodel, and that's cheap. That's infidelity. No. Well, how's that any different?
Okay, now we're back to the Series X. That's so cool that just watching the little bit of light on the right side of change is moving through.
What will you have? Anything, whatever stands to fuck me up the quickest.
You better keep this short and sweet. 2 brainwashed sex zombies in a single day is too much, even for me.
All right.
Hi. I think something might have gone wrong here. Not really sure, don't have your details? Sorry, no idea what I'm supposed to do. Yeah, I have that bike. I know it.
Wow.
Hey, no clients allowed in here. Well, dear, close the door on the way out, would ya? As you can see, I'm very busy.
Oh, well, all right. Now we're into the 1X.
Yeah, you can tell the difference. But
Yeah.
I think the 1X still holds up.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
Also, give them a lot of credit for finding a way to maximize that previous gen
Right.
to still look good. Oh, someone got an achievement. Oh, okay. There once was a head.
Years of practice. You can see it. Are we still going somewhere?
How about something?
Nice one, Kai. Good guess. Cheers to you, Kai Almighty. It was just so late to the. It was like, when is it coming? He was like, what's close to the black coffee? I mean, but they still found a way to incorporate some of those graphics that you do see.
Right.
On the
I
Series
feel like
X.
they still make the lighting look really good, or,
Yeah.
or they do have a lot of.
I'm curious what the tricks are that they're doing that the current gen hardware is now able to actually do on its own, that they're doing in
Right.
developing to make it still feel as high quality as it seems. I just can't wait to just explore the Night City.
I know, right? I feel like there's so much.
Well, what do we got here? And you just the cutest thing. If you're looking for a release, I just might be your man.
Finally get the fuck out of my way.
Yo, you hear what this bitch said to me? Best watch your tongue.
Could let him
I'd
talk
say
to you
it
like
again, but what for? Your little skull sponge can't possibly get its gray cells around it.
that? Damn. Oh. Okay, that's how you deal with a
Nice.
problem. I gotta worry about this gang. Here's a grenade.
I'm more than a chop doc. See, I know what people truly want. To be flattered, praised, patted. To feel like they deserve it. Of course. I can't remember each and every one. Even if it's a specimen as exquisite as you.
Oh, the compliments.
So many. Playback. Oh, we got that brain dance.
Yeah. That's right, you can like pause it at any point and look around.
Right?
Oh yeah, and they were talking about these guys are like able to wear something to cover their identity. That's why you can't really like make out their faces.
This game's so intense.
Right? What's up, Phoenix?
So this is just to remind everybody that when Cyberpunk launches, it will work on both current and next-gen consoles. For example, if you pick it up on Xbox One, it will also work on Xbox Series X and Series S. And it's the same for other consoles.
Wow.
Plus, there will be a free and full next-gen upgrade coming sometime next year.
That's
We're
awesome.
incredibly excited to welcome you to Night City when Cyberpunk launches on December 10th. And I'll be back with Night City Wire Episode 5 on November 19th.
Oh snap, tomorrow.
Oh,
We got another one tomorrow.
you know what we doing tomorrow?
I'm all for it. Yeah, I was just really impressed with seeing the Xbox One X footage right cutting into the Series X and back and forth. Like, I think there's a lot of people that will be very excited that their Xbox One X will handle this game well, and they'll still have that what seems to be a high quality experience.
Right, I think they kind of pulled a Ghost of Tsushima here, where it's like, wait, you can do that on current or
Yeah.
on previous gen? Like, you can do that on the Xbox One X? I felt like it looks really good, and if you're really looking at it, you can tell the difference, but I think it's, like, subtle enough that, you know, initially when they just did the straight-up cuts from the Series X back to the One X, I had to check the corner to be like, wait, was this different? Oh, yeah, now I see it. Kind
Exactly, yeah. And two, the main difference is we obviously know we're going to be looking at frames. You know, your FPS is going to be different.
Right.
And then the likelihood that your Xbox Series X is going to be that 60 FPS at 4K, which that's just going to look, you know, amazing for those with like 4K TVs that are really excited to play, you know, at that level. I'm probably still going to get, with the control. Here's the thing where I'm kind of torn on. I've been thinking about this. With the next gen controller, the DualSense controller, it's like, I kind of want to play Cyberpunk on the PS5 with that, but I don't have the upgrade of the PS5 to output at the high quality image into the monitor. So I'm fingers crossed that this support happens sooner than later with PlayStation 5, because I probably would just go to the PlayStation 5 version and play it from there and be happy. But ultimately, I'm probably just gonna, until that announcement's made, just go PC.
Right, I feel like it would also be so cool to play Cyberpunk with the DualSense, you know, if and when they do, or what upgrades they have, so the controller's actually a part of it. I'm kind of skeptical that it's going to be a while before we see, you know, a solid, you know, upgrade, because Xbox said that, like, new consoles aren't coming out until April. Like, I think there was a Black Friday drop coming out, but it's really only going to be till April. I think same with the PS5. You know, they're going to be out of stock for a while, or it's going to be hard to get one for a while. And I think they're probably just focused on that, even though it's different teams working on these patches and stuff. But it makes me think that this is like going to be a very long, kind of like 1 year launch of these consoles.
Absolutely, it's exciting though, because December 10th feels right there, but it also just feels like, is the delay going to happen again? Is it going to happen again? Are we not going to see it? And our next story is actually the story about the 2020 Game Awards. And it's a little disappointing because we wanted Cyberpunk to be on this list, but due to its delays, we're not really going to be able to see that.
We're not, but we're going to get into what is on the list because the pandemic hasn't stopped the Game Awards from taking place, and now we know which 2020 games are up for top honors. Gaming's biggest awards show airs December 10th when Cyberpunk is supposed to come out, and fans can vote now to help see your favorite games get the nod.
So Jeff Keighley and Kimmy Kim will host the virtual event from Hollywood, California, with special segments broadcasting from multiple locations, including the legendary Abbey Road Studios in London. And the nominees consist of 95 games, studios, and individuals. A global jury of 95 media publications, Game Informer included, and influencers helped determine this year's nominees. This year's Sony Interactive Entertainment boasts the most nominations at 22, making it the second highest nomination count behind Nintendo's 23 noms in 2017.
So we're going to go through some of the categories, and of course for Game of the Year, what's been nominated is Animal Crossing New Horizons, Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, and The Last of Us Part 2.
And then also one of the nominations is for Best Performance, and that is up for Ashley Johnson as Ellie from The Last of Us Part 2, Laura Bailey as Abby from The Last of Us Part 2, Daisuke Tsuji as Jin Sakai of Ghost of Tsushima, Logan Cunningham as Hades in Hades, and Najee Jeter as Miles Morales in Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales.
The nominees for Best Indie Game are Carrion, Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout, Hades, Spelunky 2, and Spiritfarer.
You can head over to the Game Awards website to see all of the categories and nominees, and also to cast your votes.
So the Game Awards is also famous as a platform for new game reveals and trailers. Microsoft unveiled the Xbox Series X during last year's show, and games like No Man's Sky and Sekiro Shadows Die Twice made their debuts during the event. We already know Halo Infinite won't be there, and we can't help but wonder who or what we'll see during this year's show.
Quick question for everybody in the chat. Are you excited for this year's Game Awards? And if you are going to go on there and vote, who are you voting for? I already saw one comment for best game of the world being The Last of Us. But I am curious. I'm curious how other people feel about that.
That's so funny. I really liked watching the Game Awards last year, although it was like a 4-hour endeavor. We were watching it like all at Caffeine and doing kind of like a watch party there. And we're like, okay, like 2 hours. And then 2 hours went by and we're like, okay, 2.5, 3. And we're like,
yes.
How long is this? I also love / hate, how for every game trailer that comes out, they're like, this is the world's premiere of this trailer. It's like, yes, because it's the first time he's shown it, so I guess technically it's the world's premiere, but you don't have to frame it like that.
They always do, you're right. They give it that hype right before you show it, and then you watch it and you're like, okay, cool, great. I mean,
right, like, all right.
You showed me the trailer of your game. I'd love to see some gameplay for maybe God of War, because I know they hinted at that at some point. So that would be cool if they touch on that game. I'd also like to see that Hitman VR in action as well. I know that was another thing being touted. There's some things in these trailers that I want to see, and maybe, just maybe, we could see some of that Harry Potter game in action. That would be awesome.
I really hope so. And looking at the whole list, there's a full list of nominees that I can link in the chat. And I don't know if it's just because it has been a slightly slower year for gaming, or there's been more delays and things like that. But I'm like, wow, I actually really know, almost every single game nominated on this list. Maybe I'm more plugged into the gaming world. But I thought that was really cool. I wonder who's going to win Game of the Year, because I'm still unsure how they really judge that, because I think if you could put like, oh, this was the biggest game of this year, I would say it's Animal Crossing, but I don't think Animal Crossing really deserves Game of the Year because it's not the most storied and nuanced. I would say maybe Ghost of Tsushima should win.
Yeah, so that's where I lean in this list is Ghost of Tsushima for the win. I think there's a lot of people, specifically The Last of Us fans, that are probably going to be like, no, it should be The Last of Us. It deserves to be it. I have a contention with the story in The Last of Us 2. I don't know when's the time that the story's been out long enough that we can have the conversation about The Last of Us 2, but at some point we will, and I'm real curious to hear other people's thoughts on what they thought of the second installment. But Ghost of Tsushima, I think, was this just this epic ending to the life cycle of to the final year of the current gen systems, so to speak, as we step into these next gen ones.
Absolutely. And it's also interesting to see what's been nominated for best mobile games, because on this list I see Among Us, Call of Duty Mobile, Genshin Impact, Legends of Runeterra, and Pokemon Cafe Mix. But most people I know play Among Us and Genshin Impact on PC, and technically they're mobile games too. But it's like, but they're mainly PC games, or they're actually like more built for PC. So I thought it was interesting that it kind of made it onto that list, or like maybe it's like, oh, well, Among Us isn't really a full-fledged PC game because it's not really nuanced. So we'll put it in the mobile category. I wonder how they kind of the games for that.
Will we get one of those like odd wins where you're like, I guess what? That doesn't make it's like with that one time when that movie The Martian won like best comedy.
Oh yes, best comedy.
And everybody was like,
this was not
it's not a comedy. There's maybe like 2 or 3 jokes in the film, but that's to like break the tension of the drama. So yeah.
That's totally true. I feel like we might get some like weird kind of, curveballs in there too. I personally, I feel like now I'm just critiquing the Game Awards itself. But I'm also like, it's so hard. Like, how do you judge like best esports team? How do you judge best content creator? How do you judge best esports host, especially when the games are so different? And with content creator of the year, like I think part of that goes to a community vote. So it's like, is it just the most popular? But that doesn't mean they're the best content creator necessarily.
It's true.
So I feel like
you just have a lot of fans that vote for you, and you're just that doesn't make you the best.
And so like I want these games to get these awards, but I think overall with awards shows, I take it with a grain of salt.
100%. I couldn't agree more. I think that is always the right choice to take with award shows. And one of the titles left off this was this game we're about to talk about now, which there was a lot of hype around this, and we showed quite a few videos and gameplay looking forward to this game, and just kind of like the information that surrounded it seemed like it was going to be a lot of fun. But the overall general consensus from Godfall as this next-gen title is it just didn't really do it for everyone.
Unfortunate. So this reviewer sums up Godfall as, this stylish brawler rarely upsets, but never fully satisfies, and writes, there's something comforting in the hell year of 2020 about playing a video game that's unashamedly straightforward. During a time where we all need chill out and forget the world is on fire forms of entertainment, Godfall is often the stress-free tonic my shredded nerves needed. It might not be sophisticated, and it certainly lacks soul, yet I can get behind the sort of brain-free fun that this third-person brawler serves up. Well, sometimes.
So, welcome to Godfall, a routinely inoffensive, sometimes likable adventure that's impossible to love. When a game is diverting enough that it stops you from having an existential crisis every 20 minutes, but also accessible enough that you don't need a YouTube 6 separate guides to get past the tutorial, that's a win for some people.
This reviewer says, despite its shortcomings, which I'll get to, there aren't too many things about this self-proclaimed looter-slasher that actively grinds my gears. The chief complaint, there's too much repetitive busy work involved in finishing a game that's a fairly straightforward mix of generic hack-and-slash action spliced with boss rush elements.
That high fantasy setting and simple loot system might be derivative, but Godfall is rarely outright objectionable. The story, mostly told through stiff cutscenes where your knight chats with a big floaty face and a hooded blacksmith in between missions, hubs, area, is one note and easily skippable.
play a powerful being who's locked in a seemingly eternal ruckus with their brother Marcos. Said bro is obsessed with the idea of ascending, and it's your job to battle through the realms of earth, water, and air to stop him from reaching deity-like status. How do you stop this godly rise to power? By killing hundreds of Marcos' cronies and half a dozen of his most trusted lieutenants, who naturally act as bosses throughout the campaign.
Godfall is a game that does its level best not to get on your bad side. It's clearly inspired from both From Software's library and PS4's God of War reboot. Its flashy third-person sword and shield scraps love to empower you at every turn, yet unlike Dark Souls or Sekiro, Godfall is terrified at the prospect of rubbing your nose in failure.
This reviewer says, while I've sunk half a dozen lives into a few of its bosses, there's never been a moment that slapped me around with the savage level of challenge of, let's say, Sekiro's Guardian Ape fight. For a dude in his mid-30s with a rapidly retreating hairline, I'm not overly complaining about the largely obstacle-free flow of progression. Still, the lack of a meaningful challenge throughout most of Godfall's 10-hour campaign means it's easy to mentally check out of many of its skirmishes.
And maybe this is because it's normally not that difficult, but combat in Godfall is usually agreeable. A lot of its inherent hassle-free appeal comes down to animation. In motion, this is one seriously handsome game, be it operatic dodge maneuvers that slightly differ depending on which of the 12 classes you're playing as, or the bloodthirsty thrusts that power its array of blades and hammers. Godfall's battles rarely look less than graceful.
The variety of weapons are probably the biggest selling point. When it comes to classes, the dozen types of Valor plates you can unlock and equip boil down to a series of fancy armor sets with slightly differing status effects. No matter how pretty the gear, it doesn't overly shake up how fights play out.
And that's not the case with Godfall's weapons. Though you can breeze through most fights as long as you remain relatively sharp, your choice of sword or other pointy implements of destruction definitely impact how much fun you can have during a brawl. Great swords, dual blades, and warhammers all sport drastically different animations and effective damage ranges, and it's only by mixing and matching between your knight's two weapon slots that you actually get a feel for what fits your natural playstyle.
Spear-like polearms favor more cautious players who like to strike from range, while hammers can serve those who seek carefree destruction. Godfall spits new weapons out every few minutes. Killing foes and opening plentiful chests throws a constant conveyor belt of fresh goodies your way, all of which sport increasingly lofty numbers. It means you'll likely settle on a particular favorite class of weapon without a single blade or spear ever winning your long-term affection. At least the names are great. Renzai the Man-Catcher and Rare's Shame are this reviewer's current favorites. They don't know quite what the latter did, but naughty Rare.
And to its credit, Godfall's combat throws up a couple of unique ideas that help spice up the often predictable action. Polarity attacks are a good example of this. The unlockable skill encourages you to swap out your main weapon for another once it's fully charged, whereby your second sword gets a damage output boost for the next 30 seconds. It is a system that rewards impromptu experimentation.
Shatterfall is another gameplay wrinkle which prompts you to think on your feet. Like Sekiro, enemies have a stagger bar that temporarily stuns them once you top it out. In Godfall's case, the game wants you to fill this meter by using light attacks. Resist breaking out your heavy blows in favor of a string of less powerful attacks, and when the Shatterfall bar fills, you can instantly kill the beast in front of you with a single heavy blow. It's a clever risk versus reward feature that's only let down because most fights are too easy to fully squeeze the most out of it.
And it's also a pity, this reviewer says, that there's so much grind. During at least 3 points in the hardly lengthy campaign, you're forced to repeat previous missions in raid-light hunt quests to gather magic MacGuffins called sigils. And earning it is a vaguely obnoxious, predetermined amount of time that you earn these, which give you the privilege of then fighting a boss. And that these showpiece usually ends up being an exciting big bad encounter, winds up taking a whole lot less time than the grindy fetch quests that preceded them, and that ultimately makes it feel like a backwards game design and ultimately shameless padding.
In Godfall's defense, there are some really pretty quests. While the art direction might not be to everyone's taste, it's both super shiny and super saturated. No matter how much you tone down your monitor's color settings, it's an undeniably striking game. Killing goblin-like creatures and armored fantasy beasts across opulent courtyards or regal gardens peppered with glistening cherry orchards is certainly easy on the eye.
Now, if you've recently dropped the savings ruining end of a grand on an Ampere graphics card, or are planning to invest in AMD's big Navi line, there aren't many games that we can think of that will give you your shiny new GPU a better workout than Godfall. As gorgeous as it is lacking in imagination, there's no denying the technical craft of show here.
In conclusion, Godfall is a perplexing game. Though the grind needled at this reviewer, they never came close to putting the pad down. They'd recommend playing the 3-player co-op to cut down on the repetition, but bafflingly, Godfall's multiplayer doesn't support online matchmaking. Gorgeous, hollow, and rarely abrasive, this is an affable, big-budget game that pleases the eyes but rarely stimulates the brain or fingers.
You know, I hate that it crosses the finish line just doing enough to be like, I like this as a next gen game in terms of visuals, but then once you really start to break it down, you're like, there's nothing fresh here when you look and think, what should a next gen experience be?
It's honestly just such a letdown because seeing the gameplay, it looks beautiful. This game looks really fun. You know, even when we showed that boss battle, we saw that 10 minutes of Godfall gameplay. It seemed really hard. This seemed like it was Sekiro. It seemed like you really had to understand, you know, each boss to be able to perfectly maneuver around them. But it doesn't seem like that's actually the case. And I've also got to say that having, you know, the fetch quests or the grinding leading up to a boss be longer than the boss is such a letdown. I know Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice was not about the combat, but I didn't realize it because in the story they're like, you've got to get ready for this battle, you've got to get ready, you've got to prepare, and then you get to the battle and then it's just like over and you're like, oh, I guess I'm playing an easy game. Like, okay, cool.
Yeah, it also feels like hearing that reviewer talk about what their experience was with the gameplay and reading a slew of other reviews that basically echo the same talking points, as it's like you made this game that could have been great in terms of its challenge, like Dark Souls, but you ultimately created this game that was not challenging enough, but also not rewarding enough to what you were doing, like you're talking about. Like your fetch quests took longer than your boss fights, and the boss fights didn't necessarily have the same impact like it does with other titles in comparison. So, you know, this is where it's like, did they play it a little too safe because they wanted to be so user-friendly that this is kind of it could have gone the distance had it actually gone for being a Souls-like experience?
Right, it seems kind of like a watered down version of a Souls-like game where it's just supposed to be like pretty and fun and you're supposed to be able to actually play through it. But the point of a Souls-like game or having like hard bosses is that you feel a sense of accomplishment when you've actually defeated those bosses. And like, I would consider, like, I really like Breath of the Wild and I don't consider Breath of the Wild too difficult. You know, I really like the puzzle parts of the Divine Beast, but when you get to those boss battles, they're really tough sometimes. And, you know, still having that be kind of like a big, you know, hill you have to get over of the boss battles, I think makes the game a lot more fun or gives you really a sense of accomplishment. And just taking that out of a game, it's just like, what's this game about now? Like, looking pretty? I mean, it looks gorgeous.
Yeah.
And apparently the DualSense works really well with this, but it's like, but the fights aren't, I feel like the fights could also be like really challenging and a lot longer, so you actually utilize, you know, feeling the different weapons in your hand in that DualSense controller. So it could just end up being like after a few patches and updates, it becomes the game. Maybe there's like a new game plus, maybe there's like a hardcore mode that drops. Maybe they'll take a listen to all these reviewers and go, hey, what can we do to change this up, add it differently? Online matchmaking, come on. I mean, you're a next-gen machine title, and you don't have online matchmaking, but you have multiplayer support. That's ridiculous. Hearing that, I was just like, what? That makes no sense. That makes no sense to me, especially right now. You think I'm inviting people over to my house to play games with me? Hello? No. Online.
And do you think I just happen to have all of these friends who have the PlayStation 5 to come and play this game with me right now? No, I need to be matched with other people in the world who are playing this game and they want to have a multiplayer experience.
Oh my god. I hope they kind of up the game. I hope they add like a hardcore mode that's actually like the normal mode.
Yeah.
Because I really wanted to play Godfall, but after reading this review, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to
I did
drop
too.
like all this money on it. I think if it gets a little more challenging, I think maybe I'll play it because I really want to, but I don't want to play it and just be like, that game was fine.
And I feel like in some of the comments in chat, we were kind of like guessing some of this stuff when first watching, Godfall and like seeing the footage. There was a little bit of concern here of, you remember that boss fight and that guy just kept like reviving and coming back in, and the fight was still continuing on, didn't have that punishment factor. It was like, is that necessarily going to be the challenge the game needs? Maybe there's enough with the loot system and in the quests, but then you're just like, fetch quests are just, as we've heard, knowing that Cyberpunk has no fetch quests. And that's a game that's been in development for 9 years? Yeah. And they knew back then that they were like, maybe we should not have these fetch quests anymore. And then you release this PlayStation 5 game, and that's what we're seeing. I mean, I think some updates need to happen, and maybe a future review will come out and be like, okay, Godfall is the game that we were hoping it will be.
Right, and I feel like every time I hear about like a looter shooter or a looter slasher, I'm kind of like, is this gonna be a good game? Because the games that have tried to do that have done a terrible job. I think Marvel's Avengers is supposed to be like a looter shooter. It hasn't done well. Anthem, I think it was like, is a looter shooter, hasn't done well. This is supposed to be a looter slasher. And it's not successful. I feel like it's a kind of genre where people are like, oh, well, we have kind of two games in one, and it doesn't really do either, very well.
Just to answer a quick question in the chat, this is my Peter Tingle shirt that my brother gave me for my birthday earlier this year. And then, by the way, I just have to throw this out there. This is not like a promotional spot or anything, but if you've never had Coca-Cola Tic Tacs, they're so good.
Really?
They're crazy addicting.
I believe it.
And they are legit. You're like, you put one in, you're like, it feels like I'm tasting a Coca-Cola. Like it's one of the most unique and awesome experiences to have, but just get prepared to be addicted. Just get prepared.
That's so funny. I feel like that reminds me of like Coca-Cola gummies that are like, how are they so good?
Yep.
How do they do it? Not sponsored.
I'm starting to see them more often in stores and like gas stations now too. So you can buy them on Amazon. I mean, I'm totally just like giving like a product placement for Coca-Cola Tic Tacs right now. But I just want everybody to have that wonderful experience that I had the first time I experienced those things.
Speaking of ads, we can run through our last story really quick. As Twitch is testing out multiplayer ads that creators can use to make money.
That started on November 16th, which is testing these multiplayer ads. It's in a closed beta, and they're ads triggered by streamers that all viewers watch. And after one of these ads plays, creators can run a poll for their viewers that awards the streamers bits depending on how many viewers participate.
A Twitch spokesperson writes in an email, in true Twitch spirit, we want our creators and fans to have the opportunity to experience everything together and support their favorite creators along the way.
And Twitch has been tinkering with its ads a lot this year. Between September and November alone, the company has gone from testing unskippable mid-rolled ads to breaking ad blockers.
This writer from The Verge writes, as a streamer myself, I think multiplayer ads are a pretty logical development because nobody is happy with the state of Twitch ads right now. They're intrusive and they also don't benefit most creators. Multiplayer ads, on the other hand, will benefit creators more directly, presumably at higher rates than traditional CPMs, even if those payments are coming in the form of Twitch's own currency in bits. The Twitch spokesperson confirmed that bit payouts on multiplayer ads are additive to traditional CPMs, so running these ads will actually pay out twice.
I think this is, gonna continue as we see Twitch respond to what is the best and the choice alternative to how do we give the ad experience that doesn't feel so intrusive but is also rewarding. So, us viewers and streamers are just going to be this, like, we're lab rats right now where they're just testing and testing and testing until they see something that feels like it works.
I know, right? I wish there was maybe like 5 things you could choose from, and it was like, oh, out of these 5 ads, I want to talk about Coca-Cola Tic Tacs, because also if you talk about them with as much like energy and passion as you just did, like that's an ad in itself, Like I feel like,
give us that money, Coca-Cola Tic Tacs. Give us that money.
code gaming. Versus some of these ads, or you can tell someone doesn't really care about the product they're talking about, like all those podcasts where they're like, we use Blue Apron, and it's like, do you though? I think that there could be a better way to the current ad structure that's out there.
So we will just be keeping our eye on more ad processes and structural changes and see what happens, and hopefully Twitch finds that nice little happy medium that pleases everybody.
But it does bring us to the end of our daily gaming news for today. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to check out that Night City Wire 5 tomorrow, and we're going to get into some stories that we didn't have time for today.
Talking about the Skull and Bones studio boss stepping down but staying at Ubisoft.
How playing video games may make you happier, according to a study, but we all knew already on our own.
We just need that science to confirm it. And then you have that other article that you wanted to slot in.
Yes, about Jesus and gaming, and how instead of knocking on your door and asking if you're interested in religion, people are going to be doing it on Fortnite sometime soon.
Awesome. That's exactly what people want.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And what was in my mug was chrysanthemum tea.
Hey.
Chrysanthemum tea today.
Give another one to the hosts. That's what I'm talking about. But thank you again so much for everyone being here, everyone in the chat, for the likes, the subscribes, the activity on our YouTube page, just everything. We appreciate you so much. Thank you all, DGN family, for being a part of this.
Thank you so much for joining us. You can submit questions, suggestions, topics to the mailbag. I think the link will come up momentarily. And we are live from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific. We also have our VODs and reruns on Twitch and on YouTube as well.
But for this November 18th, 2020 episode of Daily Gaming News, I am Marrone.
I am Kaisa. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
See you next time, everybody.